and you can calculate the exact target based on the high pivot of the head down to the neckline. And then when it breaks, you do a measured move there. And sure enough, it had a calculated target of 30,000, and that's exactly where we went on Bitcoin. I had an order out to buy just above that. I bought and I already sold for a $10,000 gain on Bitcoin just in the last 24 hours. So really a remarkable move to target and a big bounce. And then ultimately, I think you're going to see some potential further upside, but I do think down the line there's another move down into the 20,000 range.
Okay, so a big part of what you mentioned there is kind of buy the rumor, sell the news, and obviously when you get to the point where every man and his dog is recommending that you buy Bitcoin or any kind of crypto, what's your opinion on the other altcoins? Because we saw pretty much across the board everything had a slump. So was there something slightly more fundamental in the market? Was it just a case of buyer sentiment and the smart investors taking profits?
Yeah, I think it was smart money realized the overbought situation, and then it all coincided with what China did, which is basically trying to ban cryptocurrencies. Basically, China's and this is focusing on their digital yuan, and they're looking to make that the new reserve currency of the world. And so they want to get rid of the other potential reserve currencies like Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And so by basically pushing those out in their country, they're trying to make them weaker across the board in the world. Now, whether or not that happens, I don't know. But the point is that China has this master plan, and the plan is to basically push the dollar away from being the reserve currency of the world. They want to take it over and thus becoming the biggest and strongest economy and country in the world. So I think that's what's going on there. But definitely that news from China hurt cryptocurrencies across the board. In addition, you have Elon Musk kind of backing off. We know he sold some of his Tesla Bitcoin position a few weeks ago. He's been kind of talking it down, which obviously he had been a huge pumper of cryptocurrencies in general, especially Dogecoin. And all of those things just came home to roost, where the market was overbought, the technicals were weakening, and then you had these fundamental factors, the news factors, and all of those kind of just crushed price into this massive drop we saw yesterday.
Okay. One thing I do want to ask you about is that you mentioned there a little bit about Elon Musk being a bit of a, we won't say pump and dump, but if we take our minds back to the GameStop situation, we actually had one of the primary guys based on Wall Street Bets. He was taken to court by the SEC for market manipulation. Do you think that there's any kind of case of these celebrities, such as Mark Cuban, maybe Elon Musk, because even when you consider Elon Musk has apparently, I'm not sure how true this is, been working with Dogecoin developers since 2019. And if he's now, or 2020, however long, but if he is working with them and he's pumping up the price of Dogecoin, how, in your mind, does that fall in terms of like a financial regulatory standpoint?
Yeah, and that's fascinating because, there's one thing I said about Elon Musk, and I wrote this on Twitter, and it got a lot of responses at one point, is that, I don't necessarily think that, the pump and dump side for Elon Musk is that important. I don't think he's profiting, or it's not like he buys a huge position and then talks it up. But he reminds me of a marionette with his puppets, right? I think he almost sits in his high castle, and there's a little bit of an ego trip that comes in where he can say something and he just watches people fawn and rush in and just do anything he kind of says. And I think he gets off on that a little bit in that respect. And it's probably an ego thing a little bit. And listen, he has every right to have a big ego considering what he's done in his life and the fortune he's built. But I do think it's a little, it makes me think of like a human versus ants. And you have to realize the consequences of what you do and what you say when you become big enough. Even I myself, there's at this point in my career, I don't really push small caps too much because I do know that there's a following behind me, and they'll run it up, and then a lot of people will end up losing money. So I think I'd like him to realize that. Maybe he started to with the craziness in crypto and why he's talking it down a little bit. But I certainly think that there's an issue there with Mark Cuban and others. I think for the most part, they have good intentions. I think they see the dollar being devalued, just like I do, where I do like cryptocurrency in the long run. Even though I called for this down move in Bitcoin and I think it could go lower, I'm a huge crypto fan long term. I think crypto, Bitcoin 100,000, 500,000 down the line is very, very possible.
Okay, and so I want to move a little bit closer onto more of the equities, because I know we have seen a lot, say a lot, relatively a lot compared to usual. But there's a nice little bridge in between the crypto and the stock world, in that we've seen that a lot of the people who got involved in stocks after this, the stimulation checks, etc., they joined the Wall Street Bets community. And that high volatility of stocks was enough to entice people who, unfortunately, they're only there because of the return, but they moved into the stock market. And now with that, we saw the meme stocks that had a huge following into the investing world. We're now seeing the same thing with meme coins. Is there do you think that there will be a bridge in between those two industries? And will people from stocks move more into crypto? Will people from crypto move more into stocks? Especially when we consider that you've got things like tokenization of stocks on Binance, such as Tesla, Microsoft, etc.
Yeah, so I actually do think that is absolutely happening to some extent. So for instance, yesterday when Bitcoin was getting crushed, you saw a rotation back into gold, and you've been seeing a rotation into gold over the last couple of weeks as crypto has kind of stalled out at these highs, and then before the big fall yesterday. And then also there are certain stocks in the stock market, Plug Power, that went from $2 to $70 or whatever it was. I mean, some of these stocks that just went meteoric to the upside, that over the last couple months they've come down, crashing down. And when the markets, the U.S. equity markets yesterday were getting hit early in the day, those stocks were actually kind of neutral to positive. And I think that was exactly what you're talking about, where there are certain stocks that are going to see money flow. GameStop and AMC, I'm a little bit more kind of question marked on because they're still crazy valuations. But you got some of these alt energy stocks to come down so significantly that they actually kind of give a little bit of a value trade almost for a bounce here. And I do think that money rotated out of the crypto market into those. So I think the same investors that are in Bitcoin or were in Bitcoin or Ether or Dogecoin, they're the same investors that will be buyers of these high growth names, and they'll be looking to kind of move money over there.
Okay, yeah, and so do you think any of that will apply into the slightly more, let's call them traditional markets, such as the bond market, which is traditionally seen as, to a brand new investor, something that's extremely boring because it's not going to 10x your money within, a few weeks?
Yeah, I would highly doubt that the investors who are, trying to chase Dogecoin would probably go into bonds. I mean, they're generally smaller in terms of money, in their accounts, $10,000, $5,000, maybe $25,000. And they're really looking, I mean, this is the mentality of new investors. And I've seen it because I have a ton of traders that come to me every single day. They come to me with $10,000 and when I give them a 10% winner, they say, well, why didn't you give me a 100% winner? The expectation is to double your money, triple your money, build it into $1 million very quickly. Because honestly, I mean, if you were in Dogecoin, you could have done that, right? If you were in it 3 cents or 2 cents or 1 cent. So there's this expectation for these oversized gains that isn't realistic long term. And these investors generally will shy away from investments, in my opinion, that are going to be slow and steady. Well, that's where the big money is likely headed. In these slower growth stocks, high PE, high dividend stocks. That's where the big money will go.
Good. Yeah. Okay. And so, what's your kind of overview on, let's say, some of the larger indices, some of the I guess some of the major stocks that are within there? Have you got anything that you're looking out for this particular week, or anything that's been catching your eye?
Yeah, so one of the things I'm watching, and this is probably the most important thing, is that if you connect a trend line on the SPY or the S&P 500 from the March 2020 lows and you draw it all the way up, it connects perfectly through every low. And the market yesterday at its lows had broken that trend line, and then by the end of the day, it had recaptured it, which means we did not break down yesterday below this major support trend line. If that line breaks, which basically any close below yesterday's low would do, then you have a major corrective move in the stock market where I think the S&P could go back to, 3,700 or 3,500. I know a lot of your traders focus on the FTSE. The FTSE has an inside bar bear flag. It's coming into a lot of resistance as well.